Hello and welcome back, everybody, to my podcast, Leah's Time, or as what we call it, Line, because life just can be as sour as life can be. And this is a place where I talk about every topic that goes into my head recently and what has been stuck to it and made my listeners struggle to sleep at night. Today, as you guys know, I'm Indonesian. My great grandmother is Japanese, and I've always had interest in the Japanese and Japanese culture and stuff like that. For today's topic, we're going to talk about the relations between the country of Indonesia and Japan, and their history behind it, and all of that, the good and the bad, and the ugly and the beautiful, and everything in between. I'm going today's guest. I'm inviting a great friend of mine, a historian, an Indonesian historian, and also just like me have an interest on Japan and Japanese culture. Please welcome Layla McAllister. Thank you so much for coming here. You're welcome. Yes, and thank you for having me. I heard that you're a fan of the show. Yes, I've been listening to this for a while. It keeps me up all night. And that's what we do here. Okay, so let's go to the chase. Let's go to everything that we need to talk about. This lady, Layla, is a historian specialized on Indonesian relations on other nations, right? So right now we're having an interest on Japan. Obviously, in school we are taught that Japan has colonized Indonesia for a while now, and I want you to tell me what it was like, and I guess the viewers can also be very curious on how it is for the people. How was the process going on? How did that even happen? What stops them from colonizing us? And there's so many questions around here. Yeah. I see you bring your book here. What's that about? I bring my book in here just so in case I've missed any information. So, we're going to talk about politically first, right? Politically, there's not a lot of stuff happening that are in the more of a big scale, but usually it's more of organizations that are built and disband. Most of the organizations in Indonesia that are happening or exist usually started or built when in the Dutch colonization era. Usually is social organization or religious organization and stuff like that. There's a lot of that. One of the things that the Japanese was even allowed to exist was the Majelis Islam ala Indonesia, or MIAI, to gain sympathy from the people and stuff like that. It's not really pretty. Yeah, it was not a really pretty story from the beginning. It was a pretty sad time. But then in 1943, they changed the name from MIAI to Masyumi, which stands for Majelis Syuro Muslimin Indonesia, with K. Hashim Asyari as its leader. Even though there are some little form of freedom to build their own organization and team and stuff like that, at the time there was a lot of secret police. We call it Kempitai, and I don't know if I butchered that or mispronounced that, but this says the secret police would watch over some of these powerful and important figures of the organization, and for close security almost, so that they can see what they're up to. What are they doing? Would there be a coup? Are they planning a coup and stuff like that? And a lot of the people in Indonesia fear those kind of police. They would interrogate and capture, and sometimes even kill a lot of our people. And I guess that's a pretty sad story, gruesome even. But you know what? A lot of fantasy, true crime author could use this as their imagination grow. Well, what you've said, there's not a lot of rainbows in what you said, but is there any, some incidents or accidents or something that happened that really made an impression on you? Maybe an organization or just anything that happens during that time that that you remembered it dearly. Do you have any of those? Made an impression of me. I guess there's this organization called Jawa Hokokai, which basically means I'm gonna speak in Indonesian, which is Himpunan Kebaktian Jawa. Kebaktian, I guess, means mm, some form of loyalty. A lot of that, a lot of that was based on how loyal are you and how much are you willing to sacrifice for the country, and I mean the Japanese, and the feeling of brotherhood and united, and you know do your job with a lot of proof that you've done your job well. And it really feels like an FBI movie. Yeah, when I read it the first time, one of the things that do make an impression of me is because it's the leader of that, the head of that whole operation is from somebody who's called Gun Seikan, which is, I don't know. Sorry again if I butchered the language. Gun Seikai, which is basically a person or some sort of minister or some sort of a leader in the Japanese country way back, and they were taking care of that, and yeah, it was just not great. But then again, they got disbanded because they didn't have the greatest welcome they have in Jawa, the island of Jawa, Pulau Jawa. So yeah, you got disbanded again, and I think I'm glad it got disbanded because there's a lot more. At least the other organization has real Indonesian leaders, but this has only Japanese leaders. Um, so I guess that's a little iffy for me, and that made an impression of me. Okay, but then again, at the end, they all just disbanded, dismembered. Like, okay, that's politically not a lot of rainbows, but what about economically? What can you tell us about that? Well, economically, there's not a lot of rainbows either, because the Japanese was then a communist and imperialist. There was a lot of slogans that a prosperous country is the one that has strong military. Well, at the time they thought it was true. That was their slogan at the time. There was their principle almost. So to strengthen the military, to really prioritize the military at the time, who was also having a war, fighting a war, they really used Indonesia for their natural resources bank almost. There's a lot of exploitation of our natural resources. Most of them are coffee, tea, latex, and sugar cane. Maybe there was a lot of food crisis at the time. There's a lot of region who cannot really have their own food and stuff like that, though. So that's one of them. Two, the economical security is very, very tight. So there are many little things that can give them a punishment, or what we call it in Indonesia sanksi. I don't know what it is in English, but is some form of punishment is in there. So the people of Indonesia doesn't at the time wasn't really living in harmony, living in peace, living peacefully. And there's also the self-sufficiency kind of principle that they're having. That principle is usually saying that the regions and the places that they are under control with and that they're controlled with, they have to take care of themselves. So what is theirs is also Japan's, and what is Japan's cannot never be theirs. So they can survive on their own, do everything on their own. It was not that good, and I don't think I'm having a good time explaining it because it's pretty damn hard to explain it in English since I'm thinking in Indonesian. But yeah, one of them, the bad negative results that come into this is that a lot of regions separated to each other, so there's not a lot of gotong royong, working together. So yeah, I guess that sucks. There's also this thing called romusha, which um, this was the worst thing that I really ever come across with as a historian. There was a lot of, slaves. There was a lot of people who are paid lower than minimum wage, lower than anything that they could ever use, and but they were forced to work so much and for so long that is basically not even human anymore. So yeah, that's what economically is going on. There was a lot of in the East Java, in the Center Java, a lot of it. There was a lot of also sickness because of that, and the economic standpoint also really benefits and influence the social. It doesn't really benefit. It influence the social. I guess that would make sense. Well, well, maybe because it's also a war, and they're trying. Japan's not really that big of a country, and I don't remember them being having not being but having a lot of resources. But I guess that's why they were using ours. Yeah. Mm. Oh, sorry.